Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to WFSO Wrestling Talk. Couple of interviews that I have today, so it should be like an interesting day for everybody, including the people I'm interviewing as well. So, for those who's on live on YouTube and Twitch, if y'all have any questions that you have with some of these people, just ask away, and we'll answer, he'll hopefully, he'll answer them and something like that, but don't do any too personal questions. So that's all I ask. So we're going to bring them in right now, and none other than that is referee Bryan Barlow. So, and here we are. Let's see his.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, and yourself?
I'm still alive.
Ain't we all?
Hmm.
Exactly. So, we're going to get started now. I know it took you a bit like to get on and stuff like that because I understand you're busy, stuff like that. So we'll try to, get this going. Uh,
Absolutely.
exactly. So, what made you become, what you want to be like a referee? And I think you said you was also a like wrestling trainee as well.
I was a wrestling trainee. I had to take a break from it because I've had some health issues come up. But the reason why I at first wanted to be a wrestler, but I wasn't able to continue my training for mental health reasons. But I was trained enough to be a referee, and I still wanted to participate and be involved. So I was a referee for 2 years with various companies in Utah. And
Okay.
then I made the attempt to get back into my training, but again, physical health issues came up. So I have to put that on pause and get my health in order.
Okay, and yeah, it's like mental health issues is like really like important for everybody, especially like what I went through with myself, where like, because I got mental illness myself, and I understand like what you're going through with it. And I guess this past Saturday for me, it just kind of showed it just got worse for me, and just like some days it'd be good, some days it's bad. So, mental health wise, like how's it been for you, in the wrestling business?
Well, mental health has been up and down like a roller coaster. When I when I restarted my training back in 2022, it was after my son was born, and I suffered from very bad male postpartum depression. So I had to go to the hospital, but luckily I was able to get on the right meds from the beginning. And
Right.
then I found other meds for some of the other disorders that I had. Like I have autism, I have anxiety disorder, and a depression disorder. And last year I was diagnosed with ADHD. So it
Oh,
was a journey to try and get my mental health in order. But
exactly.
wrestling, I was excited at first and very happy because it's something I'm extremely passionate about and involved in. But then there was some drama at the wrestling school and the promotion that I was training at. And the stress was too much for me to handle. So I needed to step back and get myself figured out because if I'm not healthy enough to handle stuff like that, then how the heck am I supposed to handle the stresses of professional wrestling?
Exactly. I know what you mean by that. So did you must have joined like another school to continue your training after all that?
Nope,
Oh, you didn't?
I couldn't afford it, but I was trained enough to be a referee, and one of the promoters did do a open class. One of the other promoters, who's also a wrestler in Utah, did an open class. His
Okay.
name is Trey Matthews, and I basically sucked in terms of the wrestling, but I was good as a referee. So he booked me as a referee.
Okay. So like when did you started like being a referee for that promotion? Like it was it not too long
Um,
ago or
I think it was 2023, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think it was the beginning of 2023.
and it seems like you've been with them like ever since.
On and off, but there were several. Wrestling has boomed in Utah, and there are several promotions in Utah. The one that I trained at is called Devotion Championship Wrestling, which is the number one in Utah. And there's wrestling school is a branch of the Al Snow Wrestling Academy
Oh,
uh, out of Kentucky. That's what it's called. And there's another school, but I can't afford to go to that one either. But the other big group of wrestlers in Utah that aren't training with devotion train at this other school. And they mainly wrestle for the other promotions in Utah, one of them being Dive Wrestling, which is the promotion owned by Trey Matthews.
Okay.
I refereed for him. There's another promotion called STF Pro Wrestling, which I also ref for. And there are a couple lucha promotions in Utah as well, which I have refed for as well. And during between 2023 and 2024, I refed for all of those companies. And when I say refereed, I don't just mean I showed up after setup. I was there at the beginning, helped with the setup, do the show, and help with the teardown.
Okay, so mainly you were just paying your dues and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, ain't nothing wrong with that. If you want to help the business and all that stuff, gotta do the hard things. Like I know about that too. For a while I wanted to help with the wrestling business as well. So I do understand that.
And also
Like
on top of that, I don't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to
no, it's
say that
fine.
one of my future goals in wrestling, not right now because I don't have the financial stability to do it, but a future goal is to own my own wrestling promotion and my own wrestling school. So being involved in the way that I have has given me valuable knowledge and experience to be
Right.
able to make those future goals a reality. Right now, it ain't happening because I got my son who's right here, and he's more important. I have to get my health in order. My have to help my wife and get financially stable. Because one thing that frustrates me is when people start a wrestling company, but they don't have a proper business plan
Right.
and start up, do a show or two, and then they're out. Or they don't have a proper business plan in terms of they run shows, they have enough capital to keep running shows, but they don't draw enough people to make it financially feasible. And that's also frustrating because it's your job to promote and get butts in seats and to provide the wrestlers the opportunity to get butts in seats, regardless of whether you do it as a hobby or as a profession. We all want to get a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment out of pro wrestling. And it sucks to perform for only like 10, 15, 20, 40 people.
Yeah, I get that because we always gotta promote that. That's one of the things I do. I promote like wrestling, try to do it all like around the world and whatever I can. So yeah, I do get that you gotta put butts in seats. So I do
Mm-hmm.
understand that. How old's your son?
Oh, my son is great. He's right now he's the only one that's fine out of the three of us, meaning me, my wife, and our son. Like my wife and I, we have complicated mental health and physical health issues. I'm not going into details because I
That's
feel like
fine.
that should be private,
Mm-hmm.
and not just for your listeners, well, for your listeners and viewers as well. Certain things need to be kept private so that you can manage it better, and it's really not anyone else's business. I'm not trying to be preachy. I'm just trying to explain where I'm coming from and ask for respect in terms of that. Even if nobody's watching this, at least you're respecting it, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. I understand that. So like you said, not nobody's business. What inspired you to grow up when you wanted to be like a wrestler or something? Were there like certain
Well,
wrestlers that you were watching growing up?
well, when I was growing up, it's complicated. Not that complicated, but to try and summarize it in 2 minutes or less, I started watching in the Attitude Era. I was born in the
Oh,
90s. So I
oh,
was
okay.
like pre-tween, like between 7 and 10 when I was watching the Attitude Era. What got my attention was the segment on, I don't know if it was Raw or SmackDown or Heat, but it was a WWF show. And it was the Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young beating the snot out of guys in a restaurant. And then then the scene cuts to them walking down the ramp to the song "Taking Care of Business" by Bachman Turner Overdrive. I grew up on classic rock thanks to my father, so I made the connection right there. Then I kept watching, and more things kept sticking out to me. Like in terms of main eventers, of course, The Rock was popular, but I didn't connect with him. My brothers did. Kane connected with me, but more than Kane, it was other guys like the outsiders or the mid card guys like Mick Foley as Mankind, because this was around the time when he had the white shirt on and the tie and he had
Yeah,
Mr. Sacco.
Yeah.
That's the Mick Foley and the Mankind that I was introduced to. And then there was also Scotty Too Hottie, who, because of him, I learned how to do the worm. And
Yeah,
there's also
me, I know I
Rikishi.
can never do that. But continue.
And also there's Rikishi because he's freaking entertaining and
Right.
also awesome. So I connected more with monster characters as well as more of the mid card characters and the out of the box characters rather than the Stone Cold Steve Austins or the Rocks or the Triple H's or the Kurt Angles. Then I fell off for a time because I grew up in a religious home, in a conservative home, and Attitude Era is not conducive to a conservative upbringing, especially a religious one.
Right.
But by the time I was watching it, every time you see females like the cats start taking their bras off and their panties off, guys would immediately come out and put and put things to censor them.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was when Right to Censor came out, but that basically happened, and so it wasn't conducive. Then I fell off from watching. Then I got back into it as a teenager because of the Chris Benoit tragedy. It wasn't the tragedy itself. It was John Cena's promo after the tragedy happened and before we knew the real details of what happened. And John
Yeah.
Cena, being professional and held together, connected with me because I grew up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The way that he cut his promo and how professional he was connected with the way my church leaders, how they present themselves when they conduct sermons. So I watched it, and then I saw Umaga, and I became a fan again. Umaga's the reason I got back into wrestling as a teenager in the mid and late 2000s.
2000s. Yeah.
Then I left on my mission, and the funny thing is, I served my mission in Africa. And the
Oh.
first family I ever taught, the oldest son who was a teenager was like, I want to be a pro wrestler. Batista is my favorite wrestler. How can I be a pro wrestler? And it's like, what is happening? So then I come home. I served my mission between '09 and 11, 2009 and 2011. So this was when CM Punk was on the rise and
Yeah.
becoming extremely popular and getting over. I did not experience that. But then I came home from my mission. I went to college, watched wrestling on and off. But then I was introduced to Lucha Underground.
Oh yeah.
And I'm the reason I mentioned Lucha Underground is to get to the point where why I decided to become a wrestler or want to become a wrestler. Martin Casals or Marty the Mock Martinez lives in Utah
Oh.
and wrestled for a promotion I was interning at to finish my college credits to get my diploma. So I was introduced to him. He introduced all the Utah people to just because he's a nice guy. And I'm not saying that to blow smoke. He is a genuinely nice guy. We all wanted to support him, so we watched him because we saw him on WWE Tough Enough, and he was great on that show. So now it's Lucha Underground is like him getting a second chance to make an impact. So we watched Lucha Underground. I was introduced to luchadores like Pentagon Jr., Ray Phoenix, Drago. Reintroduced the guys like Johnny Mundo, who was John Morrison in WWF or
Yeah.
WWE for your fans who aren't aware of that. And then what got my attention to become an actual wrestler was the feud and the Cero Miedo match between Vampiro and Pentagon Jr., which is ironic because I hate death matches. But Vampiro and Pentagon Jr. told such a great story leading up to their Cero Miedo match. And then during the match itself, I looked at what Vampiro was doing because he was directing the traffic of that match. He took
Right.
charge of that. And you could tell, especially if you've been around wrestling enough, you could tell who was calling the match and who's the one leading the match. And I looked at Vampiro and I was like, I could do that. Granted, I don't want to go through a flaming table, but I could do that.
Right.
So I got inspired to actually get in the ring and be a wrestler because of the Cero Miedo match between Vampiro and Pentagon Jr. at Ultima Lucha.
God, I do remember that match too.
I appreciate your patience with me talking so much because I
Oh,
talked longer than I was expecting.
hey, I don't mind. So it helps to like listen to everybody's story. So I don't mind all that at all. But was there like any other matches like when you was like refereeing or about to get started referee, like any indie promotions that you were like, oh wow, this is awesome.
Oh, it was Devotion Championship Wrestling, which was the first one that got my attention as this is awesome. Before that, there was a now defunct promotion called UCW Zero, which used to be a member of the National Wrestling Alliance before Billy Corgan bought it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But then UCW Zero broke away from the National Wrestling Alliance and became its own spiel. That's the company I interned at. Seeing what they did, and also I was a cameraman, I fell in love with it. But then I had to leave and I finished my internship credits with another promotion called Epic Pro Wrestling. And I fell in love with it even more. And the guys in Epic Pro Wrestling were kind enough to let me step in the ring and start taking bumps and doing stuff. But my head was not working properly at the time. So I couldn't take advantage of the opportunity. But I still fell in love with it and I enjoyed it. And then Devotion Championship Wrestling started, and it's still going strong to this day. And of course, I'm extremely biased with them because they gave me the opportunity to train and to re-enter the wrestling business as a more mature adult. But in terms of indie promotions, not one really stands out to me because it's more about the individual stars that stand out to me. And there's individual stars that stood out to me in like the during the pandemic era as well as before the pandemic era were guys that appeared on MLW
Oh
and the
yeah.
NWA. Like back when Dave Lagana was writing for the NWA, the way they presented the 10 pounds of gold series, the way they presented Tim Storm, and the way AEW presented Britt Baker, it made me realize, hey, I could do wrestling and actually have a full-time job. I like that idea. I like that kind of stability and having control over how I'm presented, having control over what I do. Because if people say we're not going to book you, it's like I got a job. Bye. See ya.
Exactly.
And I like that. And also how in the early days of Billy Corgan owning the NWA, how it was presented like a legitimate sport. And then being introduced to Josephus, Nick Aldis, who I saw in TNA as Magnus, but Nick
Yeah.
Aldis being presented in a much better way than he was as Magnus. And again, Josephus. And then when Josephus became the question mark, that was great. I fell in love with that. And then MLW, because when MJF was in MLW before AEW started, and then seeing Pentagon Jr. and Ray Phoenix in MLW, and then seeing Loki and Tom Lawler, and uh, whew, it's just and one of my personal favorite wrestlers and luchadors is La Parca, the
Oh,
original La Parca from the '90s,
oh
who's
yeah.
now L.A. Park. I like him a lot. People have a lot of mixed feelings about him personally, but I like him as a fan. I love the way he was presented in MLW because he was presented like a monster, and I'm partial to monsters. So all that
Yeah.
combination of variety of stuff really got my attention. And then it led up to today, where my personal favorite wrestler is Gunther. I love Gunther. I liked him when he was Walter on the indie scene, and I like him as Gunther in WWE because he's presented like a monster, but not like a monster, but more like a
More dominative.
I'm dominant, I'm better than you, I'm confident. It might come across as arrogance and cockiness, but I can back it up. And I love that. I also fell in love with wrestlers like Eddie Kingston because I can relate to him on some level.
Yeah.
But because before Gunther, my favorite pro wrestler was Dan the Beast Severn.
Yeah. I heard of him.
And
Yeah.
that lasted for a long time. And then I'm a big Gunther fan now. And I love the way he's been presented in WWE. Triple H has done a great job with Gunther. I hope he continues to do a great job with Gunther. And I want to see Gunther versus Roman Reigns.
Hmm.
I would pay
That'd be
money to watch
interesting.
that, and I'm broke, so I would pay for the Peacock subscription to watch the PLE of Gunther versus Roman Reigns because you don't know what's going to happen, and that's the point.
Right.
You pay to see what will happen, and those two can kill it. I love that Roman Reigns turned heel because now he's more confident. He's presented like the star we all want him to be.
Right.
Because before, when he was the big dog, Vince didn't know what to do with Roman Reigns. Triple H knew what to do with Roman Reigns and gave Roman the chance to be himself. And finally, and pairing with Paul Heyman, beautiful. And now I am on board with Roman Reigns, either as a heel or as a face. Even though I love wrestling and I know the inside stuff, I'm not a veteran. So take that with a grain of salt. I hate Roman when he wants to be hated. I love him when he wants to be loved. He's worth watching. I love it. And I want to see Roman versus Gunther. Hopefully at WrestleMania, but I'm not holding my breath. Heck, I would see Penta versus Roman or Penta versus Gunther at WrestleMania or any show for that matter.
Right. And you are right about Gunter. He's like one of those guys that's just like, just battle on his own and just like, take no prisoners type of thing. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I do get that. Have you been to any like WWE shows that was in your area? Or
No,
just any show in general, like the main was like TNA or Ring of Honor, AEW, or anything like that?
the only one was AEW, and it was right before the pandemic started. And it was at this place called the Maverick Center, which is home to Utah's NHL team called the Grizzlies.
Yeah,
And before WWE was running shows in the Delta Center, which is the big arena, the home of the Utah Jazz,
yeah.
there's the Maverick Center, which holds less people, but still a good venue. I went there because I was able to get tickets at an affordable price. I saw some of my wrestling friends there. The first match I saw was Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela versus the Lucha Bros. So again, Penta comes into the picture again.
Right.
And then that's the only one. I couldn't not afford to go to see WWE in the recent year or 2 years because they've come to Salt Lake City as the SmackDown brand came to Salt Lake City. Amazing shows at the Delta Center, always sold out, beautiful, well done. All my wrestling friends and associates who go, high praises for the shows that have been in Utah. I have not been able to. I would like to, but family comes first. And my wife doesn't care for wrestling. The only thing she cares about is John Cena. And that's because she was a teenager when she saw John Cena half naked and this handsome, good looking, buff guy. And she's a teenager. She's like, ooh, I like him. But I'm more into it than she is. But money has to come and compromise has to come. So even though I love wrestling and I'm extremely passionate about it, my family comes before that. So if I would go to a WWE show in Utah, it has to basically I have to feel like I've done something for my wife that's more important for her. So she can tolerate coming with me to a wrestling show. And we also have to have someone watch our son because he's on the autism spectrum, just like I am. And sounds and sights are very overstimulating at WWE shows.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Unless we can get him some headphones that he can hold on, which he doesn't because he hates stuff on his head. So I'm looking forward to the day when I can go to a WWE show, especially now that they're good and they're worth watching. But we have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I think you will get your chance at some point. There's still a future. Like who knows? But speaking of future, where do you see yourself like in an indie scene for the next 10 years?
Well, for the indie scene in the next 10 years, first, I see myself building up my reputation as my wrestling character, which is called Mr. Autism. It's basically me in a wrestling mask with the autism puzzle print on it, with eye shapes cut like Rey Mysterio's mask.
Yeah.
And it's just basically me being myself, but with a wrestling mask on. And I got no problem with people knowing what I look like because I'm not a luchador. So, but I see myself, first of all, doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu because there's a school 2 blocks from where I live and learning Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and getting competent in it so I can add a shoot element to my wrestling style. So presenting myself as an autistic pro wrestler, which presents himself more like Mr. Rogers, but in a wrestling environment, but then adding a sense of legitimacy with realistic wrestling or grappling styles from Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and thus surprising people. Being able to cut a promo as myself, being able to show passion in a wrestling environment, but then out of a wrestling environment, being able to show uplifting content and being able to be more positive and more mellow. But again, when I get in the ring, being able to actually show some legitimacy behind what I can do and surprising people. But at the same time, in terms of 10 years, I see myself more getting myself financially stable and physically healthy and more mentally healthy before I step in the ring. Because right now I'm the stay-at-home parent and I need a job to afford wrestling. And the only way I could do jujitsu is if I had the support of my family, which I do, but it's conditional.
Right.
So in 10 years, I don't see myself doing much in terms of wrestling on the indie scene. I probably just doing stuff in the local Utah area, which I'm fine with. I just want to do it the right way and have a character that is worth watching that can actually draw people and put butts in seats to shows. I want to work on me being able to speak Spanish so I can help with the lucha promotions in Utah and thus be able to work with both audiences, English speaking and Spanish speaking, because there's a huge Spanish speaking population in Utah, and they are valuable in terms of wrestling. So to summarize, develop shoot skills, grow my correct character on social media. You can find them on TikTok. If you don't want to watch them, I'm fine with that. But and then bring the shoot style, better health, combine it with my social media presence, finish my training. What I mean by that is be competent enough to wrestle because you never stop learning
Right.
in wrestling. You never stop learning. And
Yeah,
then develop competency and be safe in the ring, but still believable in the ring. I hope that answered your question because it was
oh
very
yeah.
long-winded.
Yeah, that's funny. It did answer my question. What if you, let's just say like your son grows up later on and he wants to do what you do, like wrestling wise. So what would you give advice to him? What do you think, like what you will tell him?
Well, the first thing I would tell him is to have a career, not as a fallback option, but as a way to provide financing and treat wrestling like a business. Because before you can do something, you need financing and then you need distribution. So he'll need to learn how to use social media, but he'll also need to learn how to communicate effectively with people to develop interpersonal relationships. So I will tell him to do all of those things and guide him and direct him as much as he will listen to me by that time, if he is interested in doing wrestling. But I would still tell him to find a career so that he controls where he goes with wrestling, whether he does it as a hobby or does it as a profession. But I still would want him to be mentally healthy and physically healthy enough to do it. And hopefully he'll get to the point where he'll actually do exercises with me throughout the week and get himself physically healthy enough that if he does choose to do wrestling, he isn't starting from scratch.
Yeah, that'll be good advice, and that's one way to do it. So yeah, I do respect that. I think I got like a couple more questions for you. But was there anybody when you was like refereeing, like a big special guest that you were like happy to meet when you were, refereeing?
Kevin Sullivan.
Okay, yeah.
This was before he passed away. He came to Utah for STF Pro Wrestling, and he did a seminar, and I was there for the seminar, and it was very simple and very chill, and it was a pleasure to be around him because he was very mellow. He was very nice. We actually had a very good conversation on the way after the show to his Airbnb because I drove him and the guy he was with to their Airbnb. And me and Kevin had a great conversation because Kevin actually asked a lot of hard questions about the LDS church, and I answered them. And he was like, "Wow, you're actually well spoken. Let's just change numbers. We'll talk some more." That was the only time I ever talked to him, but it felt genuine, which is what I'm trying to say. And
Yeah.
before that, I had the opportunity to meet Gangrel, who also came to Utah. And Gangrel was one of my favorite wrestlers growing up in the Attitude Era. I forgot to mention him because he had a cool entrance. and
Yeah,
and
he
and he
does.
and he had the spit with the blood, and I loved it. So I got a chance to drive him to his hotel, and we got to talk, and it just felt like a genuine conversation. I wasn't marking out for him. It was just two humans talking, and the same with Kevin Sullivan. But the most important one was Martin Castellanos, who, again, for your listeners, he's Marty the Moth Martinez in Lucha Underground. My wife likes Martin because Martin, when I started my internship at UCW Zero, Martin was nice to me. I have gotten closer with Martin since then. I help him with family history because I do family history as a hobby, and he appreciates it. And we've actually hung out several times, and we just it's just a genuine relationship. Like I don't mark out for him as a wrestler; he's just marking to me, and we're just chilling, talk to each other every now and then. And Martin being nice to me is what really helped, and that's what stood out to me when I was starting in wrestling as an intern. And the fact that my wife likes him is a bonus.
That's always a good thing. Have the wife, be happy with it. So yeah, I get that. For people to try to look for you, like where you on like social media and stuff like that, where would they find you?
You can find me. Well, I have accounts with my real name, Bryan Barlow, which it's just my face as the profile picture. You can find me YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. My wrestling character, Mr. Autism, can be found on all those platforms as well. But the important platform is TikTok. My handle for Mr. Autism is Mr. Autism 90. And it's just me with a mask on. And the mask has the autism print on it with eye holes cut like Rey Mysterio's mask and with an open mouth like Rey Mysterio's mask. And I basically just do gratitude journals on that TikTok account as well as some goofy videos.
That's cool. One more thing, like any advice you can give to people that in the same condition that you are. What would you tell the people that want to like follow their dreams to be either a wrestler, referee, ring announcer, or whatever the case may be? That won't be part of
Have
this.
a have a job so that you have the financing to pursue it, so that you are in control of your training, so you are in control of what you allow to happen to you. Because if you, especially if you go to a crappy school, you need to have the control to get out of that crappy school and then find a good school. Second thing, find a good school that's reputable. Look at the talent that come out of that school. Find, go to their local shows and see if they're run professionally or not. And get physically and mentally healthy. Have a therapist or have a very good inner circle of people you can trust who will tolerate you, or at the very least, show support for you, genuine support, and also be honest with you,
Yeah.
especially if you're getting too much into the wrestling, because you got to have a life balance. Wrestling can't take over your life from the beginning. You have to, if you want to do it professionally as full-time job, you have to transition into that. It's different for everybody, how quickly or how slowly the transition is. But have a job, have a therapist or a trusted small group of friends who can you can talk with, who can help you with your mental and emotional health. Be physically healthy as much as you can. Have some type of exercise program or routine. I recommend DDPY because that's what I use because it helps prevent injury, which is very important. And also study the crap out of wrestling. Buy the books, find the YouTube videos for the seminars, for the knowledge about what wrestling is and how to do it, how to cut promos, how to take bumps, how to run the ropes, how to execute moves, how to put a match together, how to conduct business, how to get booked. There's so many resources. One good resource I want to mention, and I'm biased because I have used it, but it's legit, is the Inner Squared Circle. I repeat that. The Inner Squared Circle. It's run by a guy named, okay, I forget his first name, but his last name is Ganem. He worked as a wrestler, but then he was in WWE for a short time, but then he became a producer. And he basically can teach you the same stuff you can learn at WWE for a fraction of the cost. You still have to pay a lot of money. He charges what his value is. and he's worth the time because he gives you invaluable information. One of his most productive clients is Alexander Hammerstone,
Oh, okay.
who was MLW World Heavyweight Champion, who defeated Jacob Fatu for that belt, which is saying something, and who
Yeah.
now works for TNA.
Yep.
He is one of he's probably the most famous of the Inner Square Circle's clients. So it's worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's working too, especially you just mentioned like Alex Hammerstone. So yeah, and knowing him from MLW and all that stuff. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But I think your story is like the most emotional and most realist that I ever done when it comes to interview, and I do like that, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And yeah, it is a good thing too, and I'm glad I get to interview you today with all the background and stuff like that.
I
So
really
I
appreciate that.
appreciate it.
And
I
thank you for your
appreciate it.
time and your patience with me going on long, rambling talks.
Oh, you know what? I love people when they ramble. So they got a lot to say. So that's always a good thing. So don't forget that.
Thank you.
No problem. Like I said, once again, I appreciate it and thank you very much for being on here. And maybe we'll do this again.
I'll be happy to.
Thank you very much.
You too. Thank you.
No problem. That is the referee, Bryan Barlow, and also called as his wrestler name is Mr. Autism.
Mr.
Um,
Autism.
Mr. Autism. Okay, yeah, I get.
And each of my Mr. Autism videos starts with me wearing the mask doing this. My name is Mr. Autism. I pump my hand in the air 3 times and I spell out my wrestling name. So Mr. Autism. I start every video like that, easy to recognize, and then hopefully I do something that's worth your time.
I think you will, and I think a lot of people will check it out. But once again,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
And thank you so much for your time as well. It is most appreciated.
No problem. Hey, once again, everybody. Bryan Barlow, referee. Also, like I said, check out his like YouTube channels and also Facebook and things like that. So that'll be good to check out. So that's cool. This um today's episode will be up on YouTube and also it will be on Spotify later on today. So I'm going to end up putting it on there right away. And yes, I do got a couple more interviews to do. I got one at 3 o'clock. Which I can't believe I can't be forgetting names right away. So yeah, that's just part of it. Oh, I'm on March. Okay. Philip Wolf. There's also a wrestler and promoter. He's at 3 o'clock, so like nearly like an hour from now. Then you got Cato, that would be at 6 o'clock Central. So like I said, there interview with Bryan. Of course, besides you guys that it's on live on YouTube, but if you're going to see the complete video of this, it will be, you can listen to it on Spotify, look for Wrestling Fans Speak Out on Spotify, and also you can look for it on the pre-recorded episode of this on YouTube. So you can check that out. And it'll also will be on the website as well. WrestlingFansSpeakout.weebly.com. You get information on wrestling in the Midwest. Also, photos that we took with wrestlers. Also, photos that we took like Milwaukee Bucks events and all that good stuff. And plus like videos like this as well you can find on the website. Also, like I said, we're planning on doing like a meet and greet on April 11th with a certain wrestler. We will give you more information on that. So probably hopefully no later than mid next month we will have more information on that because I know it's been so long that I didn't like you know push it out there and things like that because a lot of stuff's been going on like good and bad for my side. So like I said, I appreciate you guys watching on Twitch. Please follow us on Twitch. We do like live stuff on here. Like I said, the next live will be like at 3 o'clock. Also, you guys that's on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And I appreciate the like that I got so far. So thank you for that. Um, Also, over 2,400 videos and counting, and we're very close to 500 subscribers. So, keep subscribing, and hopefully we can get to at least 500 by the end of the month, which I know is like February is the shortest month there is, but just thought, you guys would, check it out. Anyways, let me get out of here. I got my other appointment to do. They'll probably will call any minute, so let me just try to do that. But guys, I appreciate it, and thank you so much for watching. And hopefully, this story right here, just hope like this story like kind of moves you like it did me, and it'll just be like great. But so until the next video, you guys have a good one, and see you later. And see you later. And sorry, see you later live and being recorded and all that stuff. So check out our platforms as well. Y'all have a good one, and see you again.